Hi there folks, thanks for joining me. My name's Craig. I've got a bit of a project video for you today. As you can see, I've got all these bits sitting in front of me, and these are actually out of an old keyboard which I dismantled last year. And I've decided I want to use these parts now to make a little portable speaker unit that I can take with me out on small gigs. And where these parts have come from is they've come from a keyboard which I did a video for this last year on my YouTube channel. It's a dismantling video of the Medeli SP4200, or Thomann SP-5600 as it's known over in some parts of Europe. And so I dismantled the video dismantled the keyboard step by step, which you can see in that video, and I'll put the link in the description below, so do go and check that out if you want to see how that all came apart. But what I ended up doing was, the main reason for that particular video was to show all the parts inside the keyboard and also demonstrate the bits that you could hang on to and the bits that you could recycle. So I thought, well, at the time I thought, rather than throwing away all these into the rubbish or whatever, I thought, well, best to hang on to them because you never know when they might come in handy. And sure enough, that time has come. Now I could go and just buy a pair of studio monitors, I suppose, and a couple of little Mackies, a couple of CR3s. They're good little speakers, but where's the fun in that? And I'd rather just do it myself and have a bit of fun with it myself. So that's why I've decided to build my own little portable unit, plus save a bit of money. I mean, this is all out of parts that I've got out of my old keyboard and some other bits and pieces that I've found lying around at home, and it's a good way to save a couple of $100 on buying a new set of speakers. So it's a bit of a win-win as far as I'm concerned. So this is what I've got here in front of me. These are all the bits that I'm pretty much going to use, bar one or two, but I'll talk about that in a moment. But everything's pretty much here. There were quite a few other parts in the keyboard which obviously I haven't used. I mean, obviously I'm not going to be using the actual piano keys, that's not part of it. But there's one or two other boards which came out of the keyboard, just little things like, I've got the USB little connection there. This is another board, control board, which had all the one-touch buttons on it, with the, your jog wheel there for choosing different sounds. All these sort of different bits that are part of the keyboard, but they're not actually something that I need for this little project that I'm doing. So I'm just going to put those to one side and just focus on the bits that I do need. So the first thing I'll do, I guess, is just power this up and show you what I mean in terms of what we've got here. As you can see, I've already got this plugged in to the back. Now, this is actually what would normally be the rear of the keyboard. Okay, so on the back of the keyboard you have these various inputs and outputs, 1/4" jack connections there. Obviously you got your power input there. Okay, so that would normally be the rear of the keyboard, but obviously because this is all taken apart, we've just got the board sitting outside the keyboard there. But that's still what we need to have access to. So I've plugged in the power adapter there, which is just the switching adapter. This is just a spare one I had lying around. And what I might end up using, which I'll talk about in a moment, is I might end up using a transformer type adapter. This is sort of an older style adapter here. It's much heavier, a lot more chunky. But at the end of the day, they both end up doing the same thing, where they supply 12 volts DC to the keyboard, which is what you need to operate this particular piano. So as long as I've got 12 volts getting there, and at least an amp, ideally 2 amps or 2000 milliamps, but for this I think just the 1 amp power supply should be fine. But at the moment I'll just go with the switching adapter which I've got here. So I'll plug it in now, and then I'll power this up, and you can see what's going on. So I have to have this is the other sort of control board here, which is the other one-touch buttons on the left-hand side, well, which did used to be on the left-hand side of the keyboard. Different functions and features, that sort of thing. Now that board had the power switch connected via a ribbon cable. Okay, so I've had to keep this as part of this project because the power switch goes into there and then into the main board there. And the power switch used to be a push button switch, but that broke some time ago, so I ended up replacing the push button switch with just a rocker switch here, like an on-off switch. It essentially does the same thing, but it's a push button switch is a lot easier. You just have to press a button, but this one here you actually have to switch it to turn it on. So anyway, I'll do that now, as soon as we're all plugged in, and you'll see the display come up. Okay, and by default it just comes up with grand piano. Okay, so yeah, that's grand piano is what you'd normally see when you power up the keyboard anyway. Obviously, because I haven't got a keyboard or any keys connected to this, I'm not going to be getting any piano sounds out of it, but that is what appears on the display initially. Now, I don't actually need this display. It's not going to be part of this project. I'm actually going to unplug that. It's just a ribbon cable here. I've just got it connected so you could see it switching on, and just so I could actually show you visually the actual board powering up. Now, what we've also got here is we've got the headphone board. Once again, I don't really need this, but I've just plugged it in anyway. So that's where you would actually plug in your pair of headphones, okay, just via a ribbon cable there, which goes just to the main board there. But I'm not really going to need that, but I've got it there just to show you. Now, what I've got plugged in at the moment is I have an audio input here. So this 1/4 inch jack here is for audio, such as your MP3 player or iPhone or laptop computer or whatever you want to do. Okay, that's for plugging audio into the system. There's also a mic input for a microphone, and that's what I'm just going to use now just to show you. So I've just got a spare microphone here, just a little cheap microphone, just good for testing. And I'm just going to plug it in via an unbalanced cable, just a 1/4 inch jack plug there, and I'll just plug it into the back. So when I switch this on, we should then get some sound coming out of the speakers. So there we go. Testing 1 2 1 2 3 4. Testing 1 2 3 4. Okay, so we've now got some sound coming out of the speakers. Now, that's just to show you. I just wanted to do that as a demonstration, but I'm really going to be using this mainly as a portable speaker to put music through. So I'm probably not going to be using this microphone input, so I'll just put that back to one side. But what I've actually got plugged in there, as you can see, is I've got another adapter, which I've then got going to, just for the purpose of this demonstration, going to a tablet here, which I've just got some music set up on here. So if I just hit play on this, okay, we've just got some music coming through now. Okay, and I'll just stop that there. Whoop. I'll just stop that there. So that's just to show you. Now, obviously it doesn't sound that flash at the moment because everything's sitting here on the table. I need to get this into some sort of box, so that what I end up with is a sort of little speaker box, which will probably end up sounding a bit better, obviously with the speakers enclosed in an actual unit. Now, I've sort of come up with I've had a bit of a think about this, and I thought, well, what am I going to use to put these speakers in? Because unfortunately I did throw away the rest of the keyboard in terms of the outer casing. That all got thrown away when I dismantled it. And possibly I should have kept the upper part of it so I could use it to put the speakers in and make this, but at that time I didn't realize this is what I was going to use it for. But that's cool, because I found something else which I think will work. Now, what I've got here is just an old tool tray, you know, like a handyman tray or a painter's tray or whatever, just for putting screwdrivers in, that sort of thing. Well, I never use this. It's just been sitting in the cupboard doing nothing for years, really. And I sort of looked at it and thought, well, that'll actually fit these speakers pretty well. So what my idea is to actually mount the speakers into the bottom and put the boards into the top, and perhaps a couple of other things, and actually have this as a single little portable speaker. This could act as the handle. And if I just sit it up that way, I'll have the sound coming out of here, and everything obviously already inside there, all the circuit boards there can just slot in here, and that'll just be my portable unit. Now, it probably doesn't look like it much at the moment, but once I put it together, you'll probably get a bit more idea of what I'm trying to do. So perhaps I'll just have a bit of a go with that now. I think the first thing I can do is probably just unplug this display, because like I said, we don't need that for this. So I'm just going to disconnect the LCD display, which I don't think is a problem to do while it's switched on. See, I'm only dealing with 12 volts going into this. It's not mains power. There's not you know, the full 230 volts going to this, so I'm not concerned about that side of things. I remember this being a bit tricky at the time to actually unplug, but it can be done. There it is. Here we go. Okay, so anyway, it's good to have this anyway, just as a spare, because I do have another one of these keyboards, and occasionally you hear of these displays going faulty, so that's why I kept this, because I thought, well, it's good just to have it as a spare display if I ever need it. So I'll just put that to one side, because that's not required. So pretty much everything else that's here is what I'm going to need. I'm probably going to go without this headphone jack. I'll just unplug that at the moment, because that's just one more thing that's getting in the way anyway. Okay, so we'll just put that to one side. So what my idea is to actually get these two speakers, our left and right, and they actually just fit. It's quite incredible actually, they actually just fit perfectly into the base of this little tray. Now obviously what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to cut some holes in here, or drill some holes, or whatever I end up doing, so obviously the sound can then get through. But at the moment, that's how I'm thinking those will go in. Now what I've also got, which once again I kept from the keyboard when I dismantled it, I kept these speaker grill covers that were part of the keyboard originally. Now I think these will be just what I need, because what I can do is I can trim a section of this off, and that can act as a protective cover for the speaker, you know, obviously to stop any dust and all that sort of thing getting in. So effectively I'll have the speaker sitting on top like that. I'll cut this bit out so it fits, and then I'll just put that in the bottom of the tray, and I can have another piece on the other side, because I've actually got two of these, okay, because there's actually two of these with the keyboard originally. So that can act as a protective cover for the speaker. And just to prove that everything's got a use, I even kept the foam that actually came with the keyboard as well. And just as well I did that, because I think that'll be just perfect for tucking in the back here. So when I've actually got it all together, I'm going to fill that with foam, just like that. And that'll just help keep everything contained. So that's kind of the idea with that. Now with these boards it's probably a little bit trickier. I'll just unplug the power and everything else just to show you, but I'm going to have to cut a couple of slots there or something, because what I'm thinking is I'll probably just mount the boards on their side, and I'll actually slot them in, okay? So I'll have to cut some slots or something in the center section here, which is currently in the way, just so I can slot those boards in. And this other board here, which is connected to the main power switch, I can just probably tuck that down. There's just enough room to actually tuck it down the side. So I guess what I'll do is I'll have that in there, these there. I might have to put an extra bit of cable on here for the power switch, or that actually might be fine actually, it's probably long enough. And that can just be my on-off switch, which I'll somehow attach to the outside. So that's really it, and I've got a couple of spare pieces of wood. Once again, stuff that I've found lying around. So my idea is to actually make this the front of the unit, so that I can cover the front with a piece of wood like this, which hopefully you can see without everything falling out. Okay, let's try and turn that over there. So that'll be the front. I think it's going to make it easier to attach the speakers. I need something to actually screw the speakers into, and I think this little bit of wood here will just be fine for that. And so that'll be the front of it, and I've actually got another piece. I mean, it just happened that this was just the right size. Well, I've actually got another piece which is a little bit bigger, but that's fine. I'll cut it down to match, and I can make this for the back of the box. So I'm just going to have to trim that to a similar sort of size. I'll have to cut a bit of a hole here for the handle, and that can be the back. And I should be able to just screw that to this edge of this plastic tray. And really the only thing left is, I was trying to decide what to do about the power side of things. Now, going back to this transformer type adapter. This is the reason why I think I'm going to use this one. Now, it's sort of one of the reasons is because it's just a spare one that I've got lying around that I'm probably not going to use for anything. But I'm also conscious of the fact that if I end up standing this up on its end like this, it's probably going to need something to stabilize it in terms, with the weight, just to stop it from falling over, stop it from tipping forward. And I thought that this might be the perfect thing to use to actually put a bit of weight in the bottom of the box. So what I've done is I've found once again, more stuff I've just found sitting around at home. I've got this little plastic container here, which, as it just happens, pretty much fits this power adapter just fine. I might just have to cut a little notch just for the power cord there. But what I'm thinking is, if I slip that into the bottom like that, see that? It seems to tuck in there just about right. And that can just protrude out, probably a little bit like that. And I'll just have to coil up the power cord and put that somewhere, probably just underneath there somewhere, but I'll just tuck it down there in the meantime. So what that can do is that can then just plug into the back of the board. The only problem is it's not a very good plug that I've got there. It's probably just not quite the right, yeah, it's a little bit bigger than what I want, and so that's the only disadvantage of doing it this way. But if I end up doing it this way, the idea is that that would then become the power connection for the whole unit, so that I could just grab a power cord or an extension cord, and that could be my plug to go in. Okay, and then I could just plug this in straight into the mains power supply. So what I'm thinking is, once it's all together, it'll be pretty much something along those lines. Hopefully you can see that there. Try to put it more in the middle. That'll be the front there with a piece of wood over there. So that'll be more or less that's what I'm trying to achieve. The only thing I've really got missing is, you might have noticed with these speakers, there's the other cables here coming off the speakers, which went to the little small, tiny little tweeters that were part of the keyboard. Now I wasn't able to reuse those because they were molded into the outer casing, if I remember, and I wasn't able to detach them, so I never kept them. So I'm wondering whether I should just use these speakers, or am I going to need to put in a couple of little other tweeters to, for the higher frequencies. I'm not quite sure how this is going to sound. Well, it sounded okay there on the bench, but is it going to reproduce all the sounds that I'm trying to get it to reproduce without having those extra little speakers? I did wonder whether it was worth maybe dismantling an old pair of headphones like this, maybe using the little speakers in there and connecting those as sort of tweeters, but that might be just going to a bit too much trouble, and I don't really know if it's going to achieve a whole heck of a lot, because I don't think I'm going to be missing too many frequencies just having it going through these two. And I'm not quite sure how it works with the crossover, how the different frequencies are actually divided up. Whether there's some sort of circuitry in here which divvies up the different frequencies between the different speakers. I'm not sure on that. So this is a little bit of a guessing game. But I think at the moment I'll just keep it simple. I'll just do it like that. And really the challenge now is getting it all together, sort of just cutting everything to fit. And getting it all put together and hopefully sounding good. So I think that's what I'll do now. I'll start working on putting this together, assembling it. I probably won't go through all the steps as part of this video. I think what I'll do is I'll just go ahead, get the project underway, then perhaps show you what I've actually come up with. Give it a bit of a test, and yeah, and fingers crossed it all goes well. So we'll see you soon, folks. Thanks for sticking around for the first part of this video, and we'll look forward to seeing you in part 2. Oh, welcome back, folks. Well, it's been a pretty industrious sort of day, and this is the end result. So I've managed to get this all put together. I don't know, it's taken me a good, about 9 hours I think I've spent on this, but it's been a good sort of fun project, and it's all come together pretty much okay. So this is what I've done. Everything's all packed in that tray that I showed you earlier on. So as you can see, it's just a tray that I've converted to house these speakers and the boards from the Medeli piano. So there you have it. That's a self-contained speaker unit made out of parts from a recycled digital piano. Who would have thought? But everything's got a use, so there you go, nothing gets wasted. So I'm pretty happy with it. Everything's working pretty well. It's not so great on the bass frequencies. There's a sort of a bit of a rattle or buzz going on, and I think that's just because it can't really handle too much going into it. And I actually thought it might have performed a bit better because obviously the keyboard that this came out of, that was fine. There was no issues with playing piano through it. I wasn't getting any rattling or buzzing, but it could just be that it's older parts that I've used. The speakers are quite well used, and also the way that I've housed it in here. It's obviously not going to be as good as what it was when it was in a piano, but it's actually working pretty well. And the beauty of this is that it's actually a stereo speaker, because coming out of a keyboard there's left and right. It's set up for stereo signal, and so the whole thing is therefore a self-contained stereo speaker unit. And of course that's really great, because if you're playing stereo music through here, you're going to get that left and right perspective. It's not just going to be mono. So the way I've set this up here, there's two speakers. This is the left, this is the right, and so you've got your two channels, left and right. So it's quite a cool little unit. And what I've also done as well is I've included the headphone jacks on the side here. You might remember at the beginning I had that little headphone board, that little earphone jack board that was part of the Medeli keyboard, and I wasn't going to use it, but I sort of found that it wouldn't power up properly, or it wouldn't work properly unless I actually plugged in the headphone board. There must be something in the circuitry that somehow determines or detects when there's a headphone board connected. That's the only thing I can assume. But anyway, the only way I could really get it to work properly was to actually keep that plugged in. And in the end I realised, well, it was probably a good idea to use it, because by simply drilling in a couple of holes through the side here and having the double jack plugs just protruding through those holes, it means that I can just plug in a pair of headphones. And you've got a little mobile sort of monitor unit as well, so I can just plug that in, and then I've got the music through the headphones. And of course, because it's come from the Medeli, as you all know, there's two headphone jacks on the Medeli, and one of the headphone jacks cuts the speaker out, so you only get music through the earphones, and the other headphone jack actually allows music through the speaker plus headphones at the same time. So you've actually got the best of both worlds with this. And of course what you can also do is, therefore I could actually, I guess, link this to another speaker, another powered speaker. So therefore I could have music through this and then out of there and then onto another speaker. I don't know if that's a good idea or not, but knowing me, I'll probably do it, and if it works, great. If it doesn't, well, nothing's lost. But I think that's pretty much it. I guess we can give you a demo. Oh, and the connections on the back. I've done it this way because it was the only way I could really make it so I could get to everything easily. I was going to cover up this whole back piece, but one of the boards, of course, doesn't quite fit all the way down. It's too big for this tray that I had, so it has to protrude out from the back. So I thought, well, the easiest thing to do is just to leave that part exposed anyway, rather than trying to cover and just have that bit showing. Just leave it exposed, because I've got to get to all these parts anyway. For instance, here is the power. Okay, so I went with what I was going to do. I actually found another spare power transformer power supply that I had lying around. It was a bit better than the other one I had, so I went and grabbed that. That's just a 12 volt 1 amp power supply, and I've just housed that in this little spare little plastic tray or plastic box that I had lying around, and that seems to fit in there quite well. I've managed to sort of just jam it in there, and it pretty much just sits there. And what that means is, it means that I don't have to keep I don't really have to have this loose and floating around, and I don't have to keep pulling it out to plug it into the mains power supply. It just means that effectively this is the actual socket for the unit, and all I need is an extension cord, like I mentioned before, where I just plug it in, and then we've got power. Now, of course, I've also got a power switch. I've actually mounted that up here in the corner. Alright, so that's our on-off switch there. So obviously to get the unit working, I'm going to have to You actually have to press it twice because that mimics what a push button does. Sort of hard to explain for the purpose of this video, but anyway, that's now switched on. So if I grab a microphone, and as you can see here, I've got the two inputs that I use are the audio input, which is this one here, and the microphone input here. I haven't labeled them because I just know already what they are. I'm so used to using this that I've just got used to what they are. So there's no confusion. So I always know that that one's audio in and this one's mic in. So if I plug my microphone in, turn it on, testing, you can hear my voice is now coming through the speaker there. I'll just turn that around and point it up at the camera a bit better. So I am now talking through the speaker. Test, test, 1, 2, 1, 2. There's a little bit of a buzz there. I don't know if you can hear it on the audio. If I sort of go a bit lower with the voice testing, 1, 2, you can sort of hear a little bit of a rattle, but hey, look, you can't have it all. You can't have it all. Alright, so that's that. So that's that working. What else is there? Probably the best thing to do is just demo the music part now. I just play a bit of music through there. I think I'll probably just use this as a little spare unit. It's probably not going to be any good really for plugging into the piano and turning up loud, because it's just not going to be able to handle too much going into it. You see, the thing is with this, of course, it doesn't have a volume control. Even though the Medeli piano, of course, has its own volume control, which actually I can probably show you actually if I can get to it. This little board here. This is where this is hooked up to the on-off switch. Now this volume control, which is normally part of the original Medeli keyboard, that's only there to adjust the volume of the piano. It has no effect on the volume of the audio. That is, if you plug in an MP3 player or laptop computer or any music source into the system, whether it's that or whether it's a microphone, that volume control doesn't have any effect on it. The volume control only ever has an effect on the volume of the piano. And of course, because this isn't a piano anymore, because there's no keyboard or anything, that volume control is redundant. It doesn't actually do anything, if that makes sense. So I've just got that tucked in there. I've sort of just left it loose. It's not really causing a problem. So there's no volume control, so that just means that if I want to be able to adjust the volume, it has to be controlled by whatever the source, the sound source is. So for instance, if I play an audio track from here, I can obviously adjust the volume on the screen here, but not on this actual unit. I suppose what I can do, and what I have tried so far when I've been playing around with this earlier on, of course I can plug it into a mixing desk, so I can actually have music or whatever going into a mixing desk and out of the mixing desk into the audio in here, and therefore I can adjust the volume using the mixer. So that's probably one way I could do it if I'm out and about. Once again, that's just another piece of equipment to have to carry around, but at least it's possible anyway just to run it through a mixer and do it that way, rather than just having the audio going straight into the back of the unit like I've got at the moment. And as you can see, I've just got the speaker tilted back there, so it probably would be quite handy to have some sort of stand that I could put on the back. Actually, I just thought of that, maybe just so I can have it pointing upwards. One other thing I didn't mention, sorry, I was going to say, I've got a handle that's part of the original tray, so I can carry it. That's pretty cool. And when I put the front piece on here, I made it so it actually protruded from the bottom, so that it wouldn't tip forward. So as you can see, that now sits flat on the table because this is supporting it. Without that, it would have just tipped forward. But it would be handy just to be able to perhaps tip it back. But that's something I can look at doing perhaps at a later stage, but I'm pretty happy with the way it is at the moment. Anyway, thanks again folks, it's been a good video, I've enjoyed this, and we'll see you on the next one. I've got an original song coming out again, a new song, so I'll be posting that up in the next probably week or two, so keep an eye out for that. And please support the channel, jump on, subscribe, check out the rest of the videos, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. So I'll leave you with a bit of music. I guess I'll put on the song that I actually released just last month. Actually, it's the last video I did on my YouTube channel, so I'll just put that on in the background.
Another song that no one will listen to, full of words that will never be seen. Another tune swallowed by the universe, forgotten at last for eternity. How can the music